finding your footing in the ministry. I'm your host, Gina Brewer. On today's episode, we are talking to the senior pastor at Crossings Community Church, Marty Krause. Pastor Marty, how did you get your start in the ministry?
I'd have to say I grew up in a pastor's home. So my dad was a pastor down in Tennessee when I was born. And we were there until my brother and I was 9, my brother was 7, and we moved to Dayton, Ohio. And he became the pastor there of Salem Church of God. And that would be the only move we'd ever make, which is, I think, been very fortunate for my brother and I. We, as PK, we moved once. And I think that was a huge blessing. We didn't understand how much of a blessing it was at the time until you run into other preachers' kids who's moved quite a bit, sometimes 2, 3, 4 times. And that's with the calling. And, there's nothing wrong with moving 2 or 3, 4 times. That's not the point. But I think growing up in the church, it was our life. It was the center of our family life. Church, really at that time in our life was every day, kind of. It felt like it anyway, and it was fine. I think that was a big piece of my upbringing and valuing the church, valuing what a church can do. So that was kind of the seed that was planted in both my brother and I, and he went on to be in medicine, be a doctor, and I went on to do music business and music in business. And that didn't last very long. My music business career I was so excited. I was like a kid in a candy store. I was finally getting my dream. I was finally going to get to do what I've been wanting to do. And I'd already been doing it, working in Gaither Music Company for 4 or 5 years, and maybe 4 years. So I couldn't have been more excited. And but I love the church. Even graduated from college, I knew I would always be in a church. I knew that I figured if I ever did work in one, I might be the business administrator, or I'd go home to Ohio and help my dad if he needed any help. So that was as far as I thought that would go. And but again, I guess before I go further in places you may not want me to go, but my love for ministry started early, and thankfully those 2 churches we were a part of, one in Tennessee, one in Ohio, were filled with people who were gracious and kind. They gave my brother and I a lot of bandwidth, and we're incredible forgivers when we cause trouble every now and then. And that's all I knew at church. The only kind of church I knew was one that was loving and kind, dynamic, growing. A lot of new people coming in, evangelism ministries and baptisms. That's what was happening when I was 9 years old in Tennessee with Dad. The little church that he had 50 people, and he left it there with about 600 people. And then, of course, Dayton grew to a couple thousand before Dad would leave ministry.
What advice would you give to someone that is wanting to go into the ministry?
A couple of things. One would be, it's a little helpful if we have some sense of what are our gifts, what has God equipped us to do. And I had a skill set that would include leading worship, having a choir or a small orchestra, or I had to learn all that in college. Even though I wasn't going to do any of that, I didn't want to be on the road playing. I didn't want to be on a stage. I never did want to be on a stage. I want to be behind the scenes. And but I think I really encourage people that are feeling a nudge or interested in ministry to maybe talk to if you know a couple of pastors that you could talk to about how they got in. I would always encourage them to. We have a huge intern program here, and then we have grad residents that we hire out of college full time. And So we're giving them a glimpse of what it looks like to serve in a church ministry. And I would always recommend that if they're interested to really spend some time kicking the tires. And it may not mean you're going to do that for a year or two. It may be 6 months, but I think anyone wanting to get into church ministry needs to hang around one for a while, whether you're an intern or a volunteer, or if you have a job that they give you with a certain skill set you have. Get that experience get that on what I call, I guess, it's the on all hands on deck, and just kind of see how church does function and how it operates. So that way you get it's kind of a freebie. You get to find out, is this really for me?
Right.
There's assessments that we have them take. I took several of these, some of these assessments even back in mid 80s when they asked me to be the pastor, just to get to know who I am. It was very important for me to understand who I was. Who am I? What do I think? What do I believe? Am I secure in who I am? Or am I going into ministry because I need people to like me? So you got to be sure the motives are right. There are times it gets really hard, and that just comes with it. It's okay. That happens. So I just would say, do as much homework on being